Okay, I'd like to talk about property rights and how Crypto-Anarchy provides solutions to resolve property disputes. Prior to this presentation, I decided to do some research on common law approach to property rights, capitalist philosophy on property rights, socialist philosophy on property rights, and history of property rights. Most of it, to be honest with you, is a waste of time because it doesn't really relate to issues that common people face every day. However, property rights is a claim on the ownership of an object. Typically includes a bundle of rights, including the right to use the good, the right to earn income from the good, right to transfer the good to others, and the right to enforce property rights. It's just a claim. Rights are just claims that are substantiated. Anyone can make a claim, right? I claim this, I claim that, I claim that, blah, 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 blah. But if it's upheld, then it becomes a very secure right. So all it is claim. It's a intellectual, linguistic thing, or it's a product of our reasoning. There are many philosophical theories on the origin and merits of property rights, but basically property rights are just a claim. If everyone makes similar property claims, there will be no disputes to resolve. So, if we go into a field and build a farm, we can claim anything we want. It doesn't matter because there's nobody around. Or we can claim anything we want, and there's not going to be no dispute. I can claim the whole field, I can claim the farm, I can claim things that I have never touched or seen. It really doesn't matter because there's no one there. If a second person arrives to the field and recognizes our claims as the first person arrived to the field, then there is also no dispute. If the second person or groups of people don't argue with our claim, then there's no dispute. There's literally no dispute. No dispute arises until someone raises an objection to our claim. And this is why finders keepers is a very popular approach to property claims. I'm the first person to make the claim, therefore it's mine. That is recognized throughout the world and in most cultures. There are different cultures do approach property rights a little bit differently, but it essentially boils down to finders keepers. In order to have stable rights and claims, our rights and claims need to be reciprocal. Property rights tend to work around the world because most human beings make more or less the same property claims. So, if the reasons why I claim something is the same reason why you claim something, then it's easy for ourselves to recognize our claims and rights because we're using the same reasoning, and it does work around the world. If we have the same point of view and we are using the same property framework, there's a less likely there's going to be a dispute. There are cultures that do things differently, but it's more or less the same. I'm going to throw a funny example. When I'm in Europe and I'm using a public space, Europeans tend to pass the ownership after they're finished using it, whereas in Turkey, the next user is the next person that comes over and wants to use it, which is a slightly different way of dealing with public property, but it's not completely upside down. They're not completely alien. And so when you're in one region, it just makes sense to operate with their norms and culture and go to the next when you change. So that's just a fast and easy way to deal with it. So if there's disagreement in property claims, if there's a dispute and we need to resolve it quickly, there are three possible ways we can resolve any kind of dispute, in particular property disputes. We can come to a mutual agreement ourselves, which is easier if we adhere to the same principles and values. We can get a third party to objectively review the situation and pass a judgment. And then the third option is use violence. We could just use violence to get what we want. Using violence to resolve disputes negates the idea that we can have a civilization. Using force to uphold rights just means that right is might, and it is not reciprocal for every citizen involved, and the people with the most guns win. If we just say, okay, well, I'm going to take your stuff, therefore it's mine, then it's most likely going to have a shitty situation where things are just getting smashed and destroyed for no reason. So if I can take it, it's mine, well, then people are just going to steal from shops, and the shops won't do a very good job at being run. Junkies can just walk into a hospital and take morphine. It really isn't a practical way of doing things. But of course, we can't forget that at the end of the day, people with big guns do make the rules. And that's it. Walking down the street, someone can just mug you. Armies can come in and take over a territory. Bandits and Vikings, pirates, all those things can of course happen. But then we don't have civilization. If you're not interested in civilization, you just want to steal stuff, well then there's probably no point watching this video. Most disputes are resolved by cultural norms. People with similar worldviews are more likely to come to a reasonable solution. It is not really difficult to work out who owns toothbrushes and houses to most people in the world, as property claims do not change that much over different cultures. There really isn't that much a difference globally on what constitutes as my toothbrush and what constitutes as my home. The biggest philosophical differences in property claims are between settled and nomadic people, and between socialist and capitalist philosophy. However, this does not affect most people in the world. So there are philosophical differences in how we approach property. There are more disputes between settled and nomadic people than there are between socialists and capitalists, to be honest, because most people do not follow any political philosophy, and therefore are not really bothered with this socialist versus capitalist argument. But however, arguments between settled and nomadic people is a big deal in lots of places in the world. Settled people don't have a fixed point to claim their property, and therefore why would they bother recognize the rights of other people who do claim fixed points? And then from the point of view of the settled people, why care about the lives of nomadic people if they're just going to destroy your home? It is an issue, and it can only be solved with either the nomadic people and settled people coming up a way to resolve the issue themselves, or the nomadic people recognizing the rights of settled people, or just shooting the nomads, or the nomads killing the settlers. Sometimes disputes arise over workers' claims, landlord and tenant rights, business-to-business disputes, divorces, of course, being a huge business, mortgages not being paid, and there are a few other common examples. And obviously can't really list them all. Having an unbiased third-party organization resolve disputes helps us resolve disputes without descending into violence. However, I again can't stress this enough, most disputes don't require a third party. Most people can just resolve them themselves. But however, of course, divorce being a huge thing. Divorce is madly expensive. If you have two people getting divorced, if you can work it out yourselves, that's way cheaper than if you have to pay lawyers €20,000 each to resolve the dispute. Way better if you can find a way to resolve it yourself, or really expensive if you return to a lawyer. Ireland during the Brehon Law period, which is we're talking about before the 17th century, North America during the Wild West period, which is say before the 19th century, are examples of intelligent ways people have created to resolve disputes peacefully. However, nowadays the state is used as a third party as the last resort to resolve property disputes. So again, while we usually resolve disputes by ourselves and we can use third parties, the state is there to provide courts, but it's so expensive. Using the state to resolve property disputes is so extremely expensive, generally gives disproportionate power to those who are skilled at lobbying for laws in their favor. Again, lawyers are expensive and are not accessible to most people. Having a consensus on property rights helps us build a better civilization without resorting to violence. We could go around saying things, or we could just cooperate. We could waste money on political campaigns and spend more than 51% of income defending the remaining 49%, or we could just reduce poverty and use advanced technology to resolve property disputes. Europe, you're talking about the average country, the average government or state takes up about 56% of the economy through taxation and theft. America is roughly the same. Ireland used to be around 33% of the economy, is now, unfortunately, since the last financial crisis, has moved to past 50%. There are countries like Switzerland, China, and Malta, which the government does actually take up less than 20%, but that is quite unusual. But let's just say, for sake of argument, 51% of our wealth is taken away by not just income tax, we've got sales tax and sales taxes, in order to preserve 59% of our wealth. That is crazy inefficient. That is an inefficient way of dealing with property disputes, which can be solved quicker if we just agreed to the same set of principles. We cannot claim right now that cryptocurrency provides a quick replacement for the state today. However, we are succeeding in building new technology to decentralize authority, retain our wealth, and gradually reduce the war machine. For example, the creation of Bitcoin marks the first time in history that millions of people have agreed to a strict set of rules and abide by it without any disputes. We have succeeded in creating a voluntary set of financial rules. Code, my friend, is law. Code is law. Different cryptocurrencies work in different ways. They work roughly like so. One holds the private key. He has rightful claim to that cryptocurrency. There is no way to dispute this. You have the private key, you control the cryptocurrency. There's no dispute this. This is fact. Miners running the nodes, be it using proof of work or proof of stake, claim cryptocurrency by providing the work to resolve relevant algorithms. The cryptocurrency is theirs, and they have the right to give those rights away to someone else for whatever reason, be it for trade or for fun. As in, they can sell it, or they can just send it to someone for the fun. That's it. That's the end of the property rights disputes. You have the private key, it is yours, and you can give it away. Simple. In cryptocurrency, the third party that resolves property disputes is the code itself, an unbiased agreement that we all voluntarily adhere to. This way is more cost effective than the current mainstream legal systems and results in less violence. Our next task is to apply the same set of principles to external property claims, such as our bodies, personal property, and real estate. Titles and deeds, as well as personal identification documents, have been published with blockchain technology. New projects are coming out in 2018 that are decentralizing property investments into small pieces for ordinary people to make claims. So people put their title onto the blockchain. It can be broken up into millions of little pieces, and people can then purchase those little pieces of the private keys to many little pieces of property all around the world. It's going to be awesome. Like, for investors, for small-time investors, it's great, because to invest in property, you need tens of thousands, 100,000, whereas with cryptocurrency, we can invest in property with just €1, €10, €100. The only way to fully put property rights and civil law onto the blockchain is for everyone to voluntarily agree to the same code of law. Otherwise, we will just have to resort to the state and violence to resolve disputes, which wastes a lot of people's money and, more importantly, lives. The more people who voluntarily agree to crypto-anarchy principles, the less disputes and violence we will have. We will be generating more wealth for ourselves and living more in harmony. We will not be able to force people to follow crypto-anarchy. We can only convince them to agreeing to the same code of law by free will alone. People need to voluntarily agree to the new systems that we are creating. To summarize, property rights are just claims. Disputes are easily resolved with agreeing to the same set of principles. The crypto-anarchy revolution has succeeded in creating millions of people to agreeing to the same code of laws without resorting to violence. Using reason and logic alone is how we're going to build a more harmonious and prosperous civilization. Live free or die trying.